Welcome back, Soulful Society, to Soulful of Wellness,
the multi-generational podcast brought to you by two functional imperfectionists
and certified coaches
who deliver tips to live your most authentic, balanced, and anxiety-free life.
Let's be honest, perfectionists are overthinkers. Sometimes we're on autopilot when it comes to our thought patterns, and we believe it's only natural to pick apart every single potential outcome of a situation, or spend hours on end talking in circles with someone about something. We tend to get hung up on any little decision, which leaves us feeling worse than when we started.
Today, we're here to help you, our fellow imperfectionist, identify when you're overthinking. We'll discuss tips to help you let go of unhelpful old patterns and give you 3 new tools to help decision making so you can live your life to the fullest.
All right, after a week off from sickness and about an hour of technical issues, we are back. Hello. Are our brains screwed on tight this evening? No. I wouldn't say that. I mean, Kit was just trying to figure out where the sound of my voice was coming from. I don't know if you guys know this. We record apart from each other, and she's like, you're definitely coming from my headphones.
Right. I can't understand. My microphone is just picking you up. And Kaelynn's going, those are Beats noise canceling headphones. That's impossible. And she's right.
I was coming through her phone. So what better way to start an episode, an ode to the imperfectionist club within the Soulful Society, than an episode on overthinking.
Yeah, where we just demonstrate all the ways to be imperfect.
Right. And honestly, I feel like when we started talking about this idea of overthinking, like I couldn't separate it from perfectionism. It just kept coming back. Mm-hmm. And before we get into the tips and the tools, which you know to expect from us, we just want to have a quick dialogue around overthinking and how to identify it in your life, and maybe give some reasons and insight as to why it's there. And then you can be able to not only know the why, but sort of the when. When are you more likely to overthink? And then we'll get into the how to stop this so you can feel fabulous.
We'll talk about some of our personal patterns with overthinking and the way it impedes decision making. Yours might be similar, they might not be, but by talking about what we tend to do over and over and over again, it might help you be able to identify, oh, I never realized that was actually my perfectionism stepping in, trying to protect me.
Right.
That's why I do XYZ.
And in today's society especially, I mean, the term anxiety is pervasive. It's everywhere. And obviously, as health and wellness coaches and humans, like, anxiety is very real, and it's a very serious and can be a very crippling thing. However, it's used a lot. It's thrown around a lot, and it's sort of like, oh, that's just my anxiety, or like, oh, I'm an overthinker, and we start labeling ourselves and categorizing ourselves. And like what we're here to say is you have the freedom to feel empowered and to collect the right amount of support in your life to release the chains, you know, and it's not always anxiety. Sometimes it is perfectionism coming in and these different causalities.
Impediments.
Right.
The things that get in the way of you being successful, of you doing what you want and need to do, to be healthy, to be happy, to be functional. All the things that stand between you and where you want to be.
Love it, kid. So inspirational. I love it. No, but it's true, right? And like, you know, you probably, when you think about your higher self or your most ideal vision as what, you know, your coach works on with you, the vision for your life or for the next 6 months or whatever it is, like, I don't think overthinker is in that category, right? It's not like you're aspiring or you're probably content with I'm an overthinker. No, it's kind of like a painful experience. I know, like, I feel like I'm cringing when I'm overthinking, and I can feel it, and it feels like sometimes so unstoppable. And I don't know, it's just not something that you think of when you think about wellness.
Right, and living the life you want to be living. It's interesting you say that, because when I picture my ideal life, my person I'm striving to become, I understand everything isn't always going to be easy. That's just
Life.
not practical. That's not what life is. You have to make decisions. You have to sometimes make uncomfortable or challenging decisions in life. But when I picture myself making these decisions, I won't be needlessly perseverating on minute details ad nauseum to the point of complete immobility.
Mm-hmm.
So while I acknowledge there will be times where this decision making to get the ball rolling, to get things done, is more challenging than others, I will be adept at making it situationally appropriate, which isn't historically something I've always been able to do.
Yeah, it's hard. It is really hard. And I think like overthinking can come naturally in times and periods of stress, right? Like we've talked about it a lot this year, 2022 being the year of just seemingly like a never ending calendar. You know, a lot's going on and we can easily find ourselves overwhelmed. But the cool part actually is that you are a little bit more in control of that sense of overwhelm than you think.
That is true.
It doesn't have to be this big tidal wave of there's so much going on, and like I let myself definitely get toppled over from that tidal wave in the undertow for a while now, and now I'm trying to surf it and like have some fun with it and be like, you know what, there's so much beauty and excitement to this year, and I am starting to channel that energy of worry, of overthinking, of overwhelm into like excitement. And because I think the reason I'm able to do that is because I kind of tried to ground down and work on the tools that we're going to get into today about like, let me just make my own life easier so I can enjoy and just like move on and move with life.
That's a really healthy approach to dealing with that extra energy that can feel like anxiety. It can feel like excitement. It can feel like an energetic boost depending on how you frame it. But in any of those scenarios, what it feels like is this excess energy. It's a matter of how you frame it and then where you funnel it so that what you do with it, as opposed to holding it inside and fighting it, which is what I think it feels like when my anxiety is building and I'm not putting it to any use. It's just cycling needlessly through in this endless loop of zero productivity. But if I can make a decision and put the energy in a direction, at least it's going somewhere. It's going to do something so it now has a purpose and can eventually run an appropriate course and not stay stuck inside of me.
Right. Because when it gets clogged, when you're energetically clogged, it starts to show up physically. It's going to manifest in different ways as stress reactions, your reactivity, your behavior, like everything. And that's a perfect point to make it because it goes full circle. Overwhelm and overthinking in itself is just a symptom of something bigger that's going on with you.
So let's dig in to what's going on. What's causing these problems with making a decision, getting going, taking the steps?
Decision making did come up a lot when we were planning this, and we're going to talk about it a lot because we find that overthinking and decision making, those are two themes, right, that are going hand in hand. But even just like being able to like smoothly like navigate the overwhelm, you know, feeling more in control and empowered instead of letting it control and run you, whatever that looks like. So perfectionism and overthinking. So it's like, I like to define it as believing that if you think something to death, Like your brain is using overthinking as a tool. Like, I'm just going to pick this apart as long as I can think about it, and that'll fix it, right? That'll do it.
So if you run every possible scenario, every permutation of possible if-then sequences, you will, in the course of one of those chain of choices, arrive at the perfect solution. This ideal option will emerge and you'll have the answer. That's what your perfectionist brain is convincing you is going to happen, and that's why it's worth all the time and energy you're putting into perseverating over this decision.
Yes.
But here's the spoiler alert. It hasn't happened yet, and it's highly unlikely to ever happen because perfect simply doesn't exist.
No, which is a huge relief. And if we can like strive to be imperfect and have a lot of fun with this, that's when it starts to become more easy.
One thing to notice and be aware of is the rumination of those thoughts. If you notice when it comes time to make a decision, large or small, that you're on a thought loop and you even start to recognize the thoughts coming through and the order they're coming through, but it's just on a continuous play loop. It's not helping you arrive at a decision. You're just looping through these thoughts. That's just thought rumination, and you need to break yourself out of it, because if you've cycled through 2 or more times, you're not going to arrive at a different place. It's on a loop.
I think about like even this in examples that are really small, when like you have a lot of events as a woman, like you want your outfit to be awesome, you want to feel good, you want to look good, there's going to be photos, and this event is like, I don't know, let's call it like 6 weeks out, and you're looking and you're looking and you're looking and you're ordering and you're trying to figure out the perfect thing, and your brain is trying to tell you, yeah, if you plan ahead far enough in advance, that's going to reduce your anxiety in the future. I'm just trying to protect you now from the anxiety that you're going to experience, instead of being able to cultivate a sense of trust in yourself, catch yourself in the overthinking and letting it go and saying, I'm going to do this at the right time. And that's just an example I'm thinking of.
Well, and this is where you need to know yourself, because there can be a fine line between too far in advance and not far enough in advance. And you kind of have to walk that fine line that works for you, because I've found if I do it too far in advance, it's honestly just a waste of time, even if I do make a decision, because so many other things come into play, particularly the weather. And if I've picked an outfit and then it winds up being so much colder than I thought it was going to be, or so much warmer than I thought it was going to be, then I've got to scrap the outfit anyway. And if I wait too close, like the day of, forget it. I'm probably not going, I'll be honest, because when I start to get ready, I'm getting later and later and later, and then I'm trying on outfits, and, you know, it gets to the point where I'm just so completely overwhelmed and feeling all that social anxiety that it's kind of a done deal. I'm probably at that point not going. So you have to know yourself and figure out what is your window.
So if perfectionism is at the root of overthinking, how can we learn to be content in being imperfect? Because we don't want to feel this sense of overwhelm. We don't want to overthink everything. We want things to go easily and free? Don't we want to feel free and for life to feel more easy? I mean, I do.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm answering for myself and
Same.
and everyone. I mean, yes, that sounds beautiful.
We want the fun things to remain fun, and we want to also obviously remain well. So we're going to get into some tips before we get into our tools. And like you guys have heard it once, you're going to hear it again. You might hear it every episode. Tip number 1, awareness is literally the first step in any type of growth. So recognize when you're overthinking. So I had a really good tip that I got while I was doing a meditation in the Calm app. And it basically said, when you catch yourself overthinking or drifting, you can simply note the thought, oh, I'm thinking about the outfit choice again. And that is sort of your opportunity to pivot. I promise it sounds really simple, but it is very, very helpful.
And when you catch yourself overthinking, notice the patterns. What are your tendencies? What are your ways of perseverating and therefore not making a decision and not taking action, so you're not stepping forward? Because what you want to do is exactly the opposite of all that. Mm-hmm. Make a decision, take an action, and move forward.
Because overthinking is really just your ego's way of trying to protect yourself from something, whether it be fear, embarrassment, conflict,
failure, looking silly,
right,
standing out, being wrong, any of those scary things.
So if you've listened to our Gremlin episodes, basically talking about the idea of the self-critic or the ego, you can have fun with this a little bit and say, oh, okay, there's that gremlin, as you catch yourself. Okay, I'm overthinking. You know what it does to you. You know what it does to your body. We know this is bad. So we don't really need to go into that. But just noticing the when can really help you learn to pivot, and noticing what you do want. You want to feel confident in your decision making. You want to feel at ease with life. You don't want life to run you. You're running the show here. So the next tip would be to deduce, is this a what if worry, or is this reality? Is this person really mad at me, or am I genuinely just running crazy scenarios through my head based off of nothing?
Evaluate the anxiety, the anxious thought, or the worry. How valid is it? From not at all, it's crazy runaway brain, to no, this actually is very real and something I need to deal with.
Mm-hmm. Next one would be make a decision and stick with it. Now, we're going to get into how exactly to do this, but seriously, practice a little bit every day. Give yourself the opportunity to be autonomous, to be empowered with the littlest of decisions.
Once you make it, just commit to it. Commit to that decision. And even if you're not feeling the confidence behind it,
fake it.
This is the fifth tip, is communicate it with confidence. Yeah. So even if you are faking the confidence behind it, from the simplest little thing, like what you're going to order for lunch. And these little examples come from our real life experiences. And I think historically, this is one of my issues with decisions, is I had no hierarchy to little decisions, big decisions. They all got equal energy and time and going back and forth. And often that meant as much time as I had until an absolute drop dead deadline happened. But, well, I'm kind of getting into one of our tools. Should I just launch into tool number 1 with this?
Go for it.
So we have a system. It deals with categorizing the importance of your decision. And the criteria for categorizing are basically how expensive is this decision that's financially expensive, and also energy, time, emotional investment, and also how long you'll live with the effects of this particular decision. So we have a 5-point scale based on that, how expensive and how long will the repercussions of this decision last. And they go from number 1 category decisions are tiny little decisions, like what you're going to order for lunch. And then category 2 is still a small decision, maybe something like which pair of sneakers you're going to buy. And then category 3 is bigger, category 4 is bigger, and then category 5 are your life-altering decisions, like where you're going to live or which job you're going to choose. The energy and time you put into the decisions has to be commensurate with which category decision they are.
Okay, guys, this really puts it in perspective. Real life example here. Okay, I can confirm I've been spending too much time trying to pick out my manicure for my bachelorette.
Mm-hmm.
I can affirm through this 5-point scale created by Kit Truly. When I used Kit's 5-point scale, I deduced that, okay, I'm overthinking about this. And that kind of launches into our next tool.
Mm-hmm.
The Kit trick. This is just a bag of Kit tricks. And
I know,
when
you can see decision making is something I've worked on for a long time.
Yes, queen. You go, girl. And you seriously have gotten so good at it. And we've talked about this a lot, from choosing the podcast name to choosing so many details. Like
cover art.
We've come a long way. So the Kit trick, what is it? All right. So when I was picking a wedding photographer, we were on the phone for a while, and you came up with this really fun game. You said, okay, so, and you guys, let's use a different example. Picking a country to vacation in. All right, so you're going to take the list. You're going to put each one on a separate piece of paper. Spain, France, Italy. You're going to put it in a little hat or whatever. You're going to have a nice little ritual. So you're going to set the vibe. You're going to get in a good mood. You're going to get an attitude of gratitude. You're going to take a deep breath. You got to set the tone.
Yeah, that's an important part of the process. You can't rush this. Right. You can't just be like, oh, I'm going to scratch them down on paper and pick one out really quickly. You have to get yourself ready.
Yeah, some intentionality needs to be there. Set the vibe. Like JC and I went up to the roof and turned on the fire pit. And we're like, okay, here we go. The ceremonial picking of the name. So once you pick the name, take it from here, Kat.
Okay, so this is the little trick you're playing to yourself. It's not just random chance. This is what you're picking. The whole point of this is you notice how you react to it. So you pick the piece of paper and you open it up and it says Italy. How are you responding? How does your heart feel? How does your stomach feel? How does your brain feel? Did your energy go, I was secretly hoping this would be the one? Or does your heart go, that was actually kind of maybe my third choice, it turns out? You don't really know until you actually do it. Your subconscious releases important information to you that you didn't actually know was buried in there. Mm-hmm. It's when you see that choice that you have a reaction that you can't fake. And that's why you have to get all ready. You can't rush it. You have to set the mood. And then you get really valuable information when you react to it. So the one you pick isn't, a contract with yourself, the one you're going to have to do. It's a way of uncovering how you really feel, what you truly want.
Yes, what's beneath the surface. Because sometimes we can feel so clouded by the overthinking and the overwhelm.
Yes.
And I love that because it declouds.
Right. It brings out that emotional reaction that you can't get from your pros and cons lists. Your pros and cons lists are very mental. They're very just calculated with thought. And what you need to elicit is the deep emotional piece that sometimes you just can't put on a list.
Which is a perfect segue into our last tool. So if you're into this, we totally invite you if you're open to it. If not, totally skip this tool. No worries. Get a little spiritual. We don't have to go about life and decisions all alone, and neither do we have to go about it so mentally. There's this element, we're talking about overthinking. So when it comes to the continuum, like there's too much mentality going on, right? And this is the overthinking that you're doing is because of something deeper. So like you said, Kate, I love that. Like clearing away the cobwebs, like letting go of the mentality and getting a little bit more energetic, more spiritual.
Going back to the where to go on vacation decision, look around for signs in your environment. This isn't the basis for your decision from square one. This is when you're near the end. You've already done the research. You've done all the intellectual thought processes. So you're down to some good choices that you're going to be happy with, but you need to commit to one and only one. This is where you start looking around, like, what's coming up? Is there an Italian flag on the sign? Are the people on your reality show going to Spain for their vacation? Does the new restaurant that opens up, just little signs in your world that may or may not mean anything, but they will also evoke this just spiritual connection to the universe where you're thinking, like, maybe there's more than just me at play here. Maybe there's some interconnected network that's guiding me in a direction. And if you're open to that, try it out.
Things that you can do is set the intention by writing it down, address it to whoever resonates, to my guides, to my angels. Like, I just want to let you know that I'm listening, I'm open, my ears, my eyes are open, and you might start seeing repetitive numbers. You might start seeing all those signs that you just mentioned, Kit. And that is your signal that you are headed in the right direction. And you just don't feel as alone. You feel more supported and guided.
Thank you for listening this week as we talked about how your imperfectionist tendencies can get in the way of your decision making. They can also make you feel really bad about yourself. You feel stuck and anxious and overwhelmed. But if you work through some of our tips that we talked about in today's episode and our tools like categorizing the importance of decision on a scale of 1 to 5, doing the random drawing, but really honing into your emotional reaction to that choice, or being open to signs from the world around you, it can help you improve your decision making to live a less anxious, happier, and more well life.
Thank you for listening. If you haven't already, please leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. We would much appreciate it if you could show the world how many of you are listening.
Until next week, peace, love, and light.
Peace, love, and light.
The Soulful of Wellness hosts are certified health and wellness coaches. This podcast is intended to inform and entertain listeners on their wellness journey. This podcast is meant to enhance, not replace, listeners' care from doctors, therapists, or other medical providers. So full of wellness.